So this is very new for me. Facebook Live is very new for me. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I am hearing you. I am hearing you very well, actually. I'm trying to make sure I am set here, give myself a bit more light. And I apologize. I'm using my phone for this.
Yeah, I had to do the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah,
All right.
let's.
Okay, so I think I really want to give my Facebook people a bit of background because I'm usually on Instagram and YouTube and I would normally just share it to Facebook.
Yeah.
So Gentle Perspective is a show that I curated because I really wanted to get youths involved as it relates to the politics and the policies and governance of our country. I feel like there's a huge disconnect between
Mhm.
the old guards and us, the 20-odd-year-olds, even the 30-odd-year-olds. So I really wanted to be on the forefront whereby I'm actually using my voice for something of substance and of value because, I mean, it'd get ridiculous. Something has to happen.
That's an understatement.
So, this episode is my
Yes.
first live episode, right? And we will be discussing the manifestos. So, apart from the University of the West in this homework, I've had to go through the manifestos on my own, a very tedious task, and try to make sense of it and also to form my own opinions and even alternative thoughts. And the first person that come to my mind when I'm to do this is you, of course. And this has been long overdue because we've been listed
Yeah.
that we really need to, link up and have this discussion
Yeah.
on a platform because we've been to have it anyways.
Yeah. True. True. That's very true.
Yeah. So I would like to thank you so much. And
You're
for those of you who
welcome.
don't know, this is Dominique Noralez, the
Yeah.
eloquent, the infamous.
Infamous. I don't like infamous.
Okay, fine. Okay. Maybe by the end of the session, we'll come up with a different term for you.
Yes.
But
Yes.
for those of you who don't know, Dom is currently in Barbados, pursuing her undergrad degree. I guess she could get into that because I don't want to call the wrong title, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you so much for carving out your time, especially since one of the 2 hours ahead of us. And
Yeah. Yeah. And we kind of there in the middle. Well, my midterms almost finished. So but yeah, with the 2 hours ahead.
yeah.
Hi to the followers of the Gentle Perspective. My name is Dominique Noralez. Like Ranisha said, I am a student at the University of the West Indies, the Cayfield campus here in Barbados. I am studying sociology, and I just have a fervent, love for politics and policy, especially adding the youth development and gender lenses. So we thought we'd just link up and have this conversation, no?
Yeah. All right. So we're going to try to split it up a bit. So whenever I
Yeah.
get to this, I don't know how that going, but we have to figure it out as we go along. So
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it has been very overwhelming as a young person. And I don't know if that because of COVID and then all the weather systems and just 2020 in a whole just giving us L after L. But
Yes.
I am of the belief that currently we are in a transitioning period. And I'm not saying this to allude that okay, maybe another party may come into power, which is a possibility, but merely for the fact that I feel like more young people are becoming cognizant and aware of the doings of our country and being able to call on it and say, look, this don't make any sense. What no they do?
Mhm. Yeah.
And that has been long overdue. So I really feel the need for more of us to speak up and start to create a dialogue. So, like I mentioned, we will be discussing the manifestos. Hold on, I feel like I'm a bit too low. 1 second. Yeah, we'll be discussing the manifestos of the political parties vying for office come November
Yeah.
11th. And which one you want to start off first with?
It doesn't matter to me.
Mhm.
It's whatever we're most comfortable with. I just wanna like sort of lay the background, no?
Mhm.
A friend of mine, let me just see if I could come off of this to, oh no, I can't do that. Okay, so I can't come off the broadcast, but I wanted to kind of preface our discussion with the thoughts of one of my friends, and one of the people who I follow on Twitter, a young
Oh,
Belizean, Trina Palacio. And what she said was that, in essence, because I'm paraphrasing here, because I can't go to see the document or to see the
you made the
screenshot,
post
but
you put up today?
yes, the post I
Uh,
put up today is that a lot of conversations are being had out by political pundits, who have never stepped into these communities that they speak so fondly of, who have had all the access to power and to land, and that she was being sarcastic in saying that she feels seen,
yeah.
but really, really, it was a sarcastic statement to say that you're talking about all these things, but yet you still have never made the effort to look at,
Mhm.
or to step in the shoes as best as you can, to the people or who you speak. So like you have that, I call it the Jesus complex. So you call and try to be the savior of people. So I just wanted to kind of preface the conversation with that as we jump into our first manifesto. I think we should just do the incumbent first, the incumbent party.
Sure. By
All
all
right.
means. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I was looking at the manifestos,
Mhm.
it's I don't know if this is the purpose of it because most times it's a bit vague. I know they're strapped for time and it's just mainly to give an idea of what they can do if elected, but I feel like it is always too broad and vague, so we're not being able to hold them accountable for it if it
Yeah.
doesn't happen. So it's
Mhm.
always an open-ended statement or paragraph. So when it's all said and done, they could say, oh, well, we never saw me and do this, we saw me and do this. And we did it in
Yeah.
that way, you know, just
Yeah.
to save themselves, right? So
Hmm.
youth and sports was what I focused on as it related to the United Democratic Party manifesto. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, I've never liked these two entities being placed together. There should not be a minister or a ministry of youth and sports. These are two powerful entities that need their own attention and respect and budget. And I've found that most times when a manifesto is created, they just join it together as one. Our Bella
Yeah.
Sporting Complex that they serve for youth and for sports. Got it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, I feel that it gives off the impression that that is the only way young people can achieve something and be of another caliber within the society if they are proficient, or I should say inclined, in a particular sport. So I feel like that is a huge drawback when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the entire structure of that particular ministry. So our jump right in. I noticed that the UDP, okay, so the UDP is proposing that they will develop a broad public service youth advisory, and that is intended to have representation from all government departments. Now, the first thing that came to mind while watching this is what exactly happened to the National Youth Council,
Precisely.
and how will that be relevant in this term if they are elected? So that whole gap and that confusion, I feel like they're just to scrap National Youth Council altogether and they come with a new
Mm-hmm.
initiative. And I'm like, wait. Just go back a little bit
Yeah.
and explain to us what happened, you know?
I think
So,
I think for just the when I too focused on youth economics. I on all manifestos that I looked at, and re-looked at. I looked at the economy, the health, because that's very important, especially given the pandemic. But
yeah.
also the women's, youth, agendas that they put forward, and land as well. When I read the part about the UDP, the United Democratic Party's manifesto, and we have to say the acronym because we know we have other people who probably aren't Belizeans who don't know what that means. It says to harness the talents and ideas of young persons and to ensure a succession plan, for the leadership of our nation. The UDP government commits to the appointment of minimum 30% young persons to boards and statutory bodies. And I immediately, like you, thought about the National Council, of which I was a part. And it's looking at, just the incumbent parties manifesto. It's hard to not think, oh, but you and like many other people that I've spoken to, it's hard to think, oh, but you never had like 12 years to do this kind of thing,
Exactly.
It's hard not to think about that. But when you look at, just it seems like a rewording of ideas, and I would really love to see the National Youth Council not only organically come from young people, but also be given the support that it needs to succeed, no? Because there's so much that young people have to offer, and not just becoming athletes, because all the way they're not athletes. Case
Right.
in point, all the way they're not athletes, right? But it's funny, and I just want to, as I close this point here, jump to the old manifesto, or the manifesto from the previous term, which was 2015 to 2020, and that was called "The Best Is Yet to Come."
Yet to
And it
come.
was I think a 30 odd page document, and they spoke up. And most manifestos, and not only that of the United Democratic Party, but also that of the other major political party, they speak a lot about youth in terms of just that sport development thing. Sport development is wildly important. My baby brother is an athlete. And I understand what the sporting disciplines does for young people. But sport development and youth development, they're two different things.
And they are continuously putting it together as one.
Yeah, because they don't understand what youth development is. There's a huge knowledge gap in terms of what politicians understand youth development to look like and to sound like, and what kind of political will and funding it needs to succeed. It hasn't been there. And so when I look at this, I think, and the policy paper for the UDP was only 2 pages long for youth development. 1 page, right? So as is that of the PUP, but I think, that just looking at what is youth development, how can you mainstream youth development? The Department of Youth Services has invested in, we're the Commonwealth pilot country for youth mainstreaming in development planning. How are you going to make sure that carries on? So these are the things we have to be able to just interrogate. I don't appreciate this coming like this what Columbus idea, because we know the value of young people, because we know we the campaign today. We know it. So all of a sudden you come as if it's a new idea, and it's kind of disheartening.
And Tad, I mean, immensely, in my opinion. But I like that you touched on their aspect whereby they mentioned 30% of young persons being on the boards of statutory bodies, because I made mention of that as well within my notes while I was going through it. So the first thing, another thing that came to mind was the quota system coming into play so effortlessly. Because now, yes, you are carving out a niche for 30% of young people to be on these statutory bodies. But I want to know the effectiveness. How well will you accommodate youths to ensure that they are not just a placeholder or not just a nuisance within this capacity? Because I don't want, when an inaugural building is, being done, that young person is standing prim and properly in their uniform for a photograph. But when the main meat of the matter is coming into play and people are discussing policy issues that will affect that very same individual, that young person is not in the room. Moreover, not just that, but we now take a look at the bias that can occur by this, because now this may be a frenzy whereby so much money out our budget will get scraped out supposedly for a youth statutory body. Meanwhile, it is being misused, mismanaged, misappropriated.
Mhm.
The media finds out about it, the public finds out about it, and nothing gets done. Or
Yeah.
this now becomes another coveted position where only those with privilege and entitlement and who is a close affiliate of a minister or a political entity can have the advantage of being a part of, and you are forgetting the marginalized youth. Or I don't even want to use the term marginalized, because I think, and we raised this discussion in our Voices chat, whereby they
Mhm.
feel that marginalized or unrepresented means unarticulate and not being able to form a decent thought and being able to expound upon that eloquently.
Yeah.
So any young person in general. So that's my fear about that whole 30% quota being implemented into the statutory bodies.
I think I think it of course can be a good thing if done properly, as most things, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think it can be a great thing, but again, it comes with just the mentality, because you got, like you brought up just now, you have those people who think, well, why young people they are. And I'll never forget one of my first engagements with a huge national body, which was the implementation committee for the UNCA, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, that we signed on to in 2015 or 2016, that I am not sure is implemented as yet. I would put my name out there to say that it's not.
Uh,
But the first meeting I went, I remember a CEO, and I know they call the CEO name because we know like stir the pot, but we tell the truth. Um, the first thing that was said to me is that, or not even to me, I was in the room, but the person just said, "Well, why this young person there?" Like, as if I was not in the room, and I couldn't at that age. Maybe I didn't have the confidence at the time. But I was just so shocked at it, because it doesn't like me ask for Ghana,
mhm.
Somebody, the leader of the UN body that was leading that initiative, invited the National Youth Council there. So that's just the mentality of people, the political will, the funds, because it takes much for me, a young person, we're probably in a university or anything, for go that there are meetings with a bump pan. You have to figure out how you get there. All of the things, yeah. I just a comprehensive look at the struggles of what young people have to go through to be involved, and even more than that, to be listened to and to be valued in the space. Because you don't want to be a curtain, you don't want to be a tablecloth. You want to be able to valuably contribute to the conversation without being pushed
Agreed.
aside. Okay, we don't have a lead young person already, so we don't fill that quota, we don't tick up that line item, and that's what
Exactly.
happens a lot. And when that doesn't happen, it's because that somebody were affiliated with somebody in rank. So these are the things that we have to tackle when it comes to youth development and youth mainstreaming as a pillar of national development. Because people think we the player when we say that young people that were a huge part of Belize's population, when we say that young people's tax and young people's productivity will carry this nation through to the next 20, 30 years. That's not a
And
joke.
Dom, we all know and we know that these political parties know, because as far as I can recall, and maybe this isn't the case because this may be, this is my second time going to vote. And this is the first time I have been this well rounded and articulate and being able to identify the inequality and in the inadequacies within the system. But
Mm-hmm.
I can attest that this year, many of the political ads and promotions are being done by who? Young people. So we know that they need us. but they
Yeah.
are not. And when I say they, I mean the United Democratic Party, the People's United Party, because both of them, they have been in this for decades. So they know all the ins and outs and all the strategies and all the cons to try to manipulate us subliminally. So they
Yeah.
know that this year is very paramount because you have such a large number of young people voting for the very first time, or maybe
Yeah.
for the second or third time, who probably didn't know what they were doing the first time around, and finally being
Mm-hmm.
able to recognize the flaws and the injustices within the system.
Yeah.
My thing is, if you know we are so important and valuable, why are you throwing something so casually in a manifesto and not following through with it?
Yeah. That I mean, and I want to shift over to when I looked at the BPP's manifesto, because I don't want us to think that this is only a major political party
Right.
conversation. Although the BPP hasn't put up a full 31 candidates, still think it's important to touch on them. And I want to shift over now to the People's United Party. So in 2015, their manifesto's name was Power to the People.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and their youth agenda looked much like that sport thing we speak about, right? To support our youth to excel in sports, upgrade all indoor and outdoor sporting
There were four
facilities.
pointers. Only
Yes.
four.
So, and then we look at their 2020 manifesto. I think their manifesto, which is called Plan Belize, I believe that works for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the youth sector, the language of the manifesto, I think, is very impressive, very progressive. And I don't want to reduce the conversation to semantics and marketing, but I think the language itself, you hear the difference. When they speak about youth in this manifesto for this year, 2020, and the POP is very interesting in that they launched these policy documents leading up to the launch of their manifesto.
Yeah.
The UDP launched a manifesto, but they didn't launch policy papers. They broke down their manifesto in the same way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So PUP says they'll increase the budget from 4 million to 12 million for projects with social impact. Their design programs to expose you to new creative technological skills, fully implement a national youth development policy. Stuff like that is what they talk about. And you
Yeah.
see the shift or the growth in mindset from that 2015 to 2020, which spoke about sports and developing and finishing
Yeah.
Marian Jones. So this progressive thought about increasing the budget, make sure young people are at all levels of governance. So these things, and it's not as strong as I'd like it to be, maybe because I work in youth development, so I understand
Mm-hmm.
what it takes. But I think it's a marked move from that 2015 a 2015 tokenism to
By
now this
far.
2020 inclusion.
Right.
So I have to give any props to that.
Definitely. And I was just going to expound more about the United Democratic Party's 2015 manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
Another strife that
Okay.
I'm having with these documents is that back in 2015, the UDP made mention of implementing phase 2 of the CAPS project, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this would essentially serve the at-risk youths and provide rehabilitation entities and programs for them. And I'm not sure if you pick this up, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing a trend here with the youths and the way how the political parties deal with them, whereby it's more of a reactive approach than a proactive approach. So
Mm-hmm.
you have now where these parties are coming up with initiatives and giving attention to rehabilitation and assimilation into the workforce after being incarcerated and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
But that is only after
Yeah.
children are going out to commit murders on behalf of the older gang members. And it's children who are being incarcerated So why not try to implement strategies and policies to nip this in the bud and to prevent this, as
Yeah.
opposed to doing it in the
Being
reverse?
reactive.
Because one,
That
I'm not an economist, but I would have one thing the latter cost a whole lot more.
yeah, it does. It does. So and it's a perennial issue, right? And it's not unique to Belize. It's not unique to Belize,
Yeah.
but it is very much practiced in Belize because one, we're a very punitive society. Two, we rather fix people than make sure they not get broken from the start. Which
Agreed.
we not do a good job at fixing people at all because
Courtesy, but that's another thing.
we not have enough of anything to make sure that the fixing is done well.
Hmm.
Right? So that one thing. Secondly, when you look at the budgets, I think when I was doing my certification in youth development from the Open Campus, one of the things that I wrote a paper on was how much money we invest in the prisons as opposed to youth development. And the difference was so huge. So we invest more money in the prison system, and then we invest little money in the play youth development over the try do.
Yeah.
And then two, when you look at just the way in which we operate, man, like we rather punish people before we help them not get to a space where we have to punish them. That's just how we've been operating, always, and in all ways. It's just this thing of I call it, like I said, I call it a Jesus complex. So we have to use saving people for political clout, and it hasn't done us any good at all,
And
and it has cost us lives literally, and a lot of it. So I think the hope is that we not only there's this saying about justice where justice must not only be done but it must be seen to be done. I
mhm.
hope that we take that approach when it comes to youth development.
And I was actually talking to one of our friends last night, and there was a topic that it's there, it's known, but being reminded of it is really staggering.
Mm-hmm.
So, as some of you may know, I will actually be broadcasting on Election Day live via Love Television and Love FM. And
Mm-hmm.
I will be stationed at the Queen Square constituency. So, looking at this now, we now see that Queen Square is a stalwart of the United Democratic Party for
Okay.
decades on end. And now you have Ms. Denise Barrow stepping in on behalf of the Prime Minister to continue that lineage. Now, as a 24-year-old, and we're looking at this situation with crime, and we're noticing that
Mm-hmm.
the hub of illicit activity and gang violence, or the more prominent gang entities, are in the Queen Square division. What has what has the I mean, it's true. Jad Street, Pluto Street, the whole Crawl Road area, it's incessantly
Mm.
concentrated in that area. What has Dean Barrow done over the years to try to mitigate that issue?
I mean,
When you have hundreds of young men, but thousands over the span of him being the area representative of that area, go down into a mortuary book. There have not been any proactive implementations to try to deter the staunch level of gang violence and just dubious activity and poverty in that area.
yeah. And I don't want to tonight single out constituencies, but that's a very salient point. And I don't think there have been enough studies about garrison communities. I know there has been very much in very much of those studies in Jamaica, but I
Yeah.
don't know that we have had the will nor the courage to do studies on garrison communities in Belize. And garrison communities may look very different than it does in Jamaica. But I think it still somewhat exists. And if you overlay those things of, the pumping of funds into communities to have it do better than the pumping out of literal lifeblood of those communities, you find that the lifeblood has been pumped out of those communities more than the money has been. The money to develop people, because we know money flow, but that what the money will get used for, kind of thing. So I think that's important to just point out there. And I wanted to just sort of to shift the conversation to a bit of the evaluating the last manifestos of these parties, but also and looking at what they achieved. So did they take off some things, and also what they plan to do economically. So the focus on that pan the UDP, because they're the incumbent party. And if you look at elections, and I don't know election whiz. I know well, make a note of that. Let me change it and say that I am not calling the election. But I am saying that the trend has been in the Caribbean. There has been just about 10 elections in the Caribbean since the year started. The most recent being that of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where their Prime Minister has moved into his 5th term. And that's the people's choice. 5th term, then they got to referendum and they said they don't want their Prime Ministers have no fixed term. And so the man, Prime Minister Ralph, moved into his 5th term as Prime Minister of SVG. Now, I don't think that's supposed to happen. But the will of SVG, self-determination, yes? But as we look at the achievements of the UDP thus far, they've made promises in their last manifesto to develop a national housing policy. I don't know that happened. They promised to, and manifestos are really covenants. They're really promises between people and politicians.
But if there aren't any repercussions for breaking them and Belizeans do give that,
exactly,
they will continuously just.
Yeah. They promised to develop an Institute of Science and Technology and one of Enterprise and Innovation. I don't think that happened. I know that internet increased. The penetration of internet definitely increased. We pay less for internet now, so that's a definite success. And I know that for a fact because I interviewed one of the persons from Digi, and we had an extensive conversation about just the penetration and how much has been invested. I think it was $20 million over the last 6 years into between $20 and $50 million has been invested in that. So that's definitely a success. Yeah. The procurement of 2 helicopters to enhance the work of security forces and emergency personnel. We know that there was a tragic end to some men this year. And so we know that has been an issue that we have had, making sure that our security forces who are serving and protecting us are given the tools to do what they need to do. Yeah. So those are some of the things that the UDP kind of looked at. Construction of the Belize City Civic Center, we see that on the boulevard. They paved the road to Caracol. We see that had happened. Develop and implement a national transportation master plan to address the need for efficient and cost-effective movement of people and goods. So we know that never happened, but we know that very recently there was a mutual ticketing system.
A week or 2 weeks ago.
Yes, there was a move to. Crisis causes people to expedite things. And maybe expedite the wrong word because they never expedited.
Correct.
But that's something that had happened recently. So we know that there was some hit and miss based on the last 2015 and what they're looking at doing now. So quite interestingly, in their manifesto, they separated the economic and financial sector because the economic part never said much about the economy, but the financial sector said a lot about it. And I just found it interesting that they would separate the two, right? Yeah. What they said about the economy was, quote, strengthening the productive sector. We in the UDP firmly believe that the pillars for a strong Belizean economy are the components of the productive sector, agriculture, tourism, and services, a fair and functional taxation system, strong and good governance in the public sector, and a transportation system. So that's what they wanted to focus on in the economy. And then they jumped to the financial sector, where they said they remove the step that requires non-residents to obtain central bank approval for payment for purchase of real estate from Belize, remove central bank approval for foreigners to hold shares of a Belize company. I probably don't know enough to speak on this, but those two, and of course the financial sector had other points. I'm just jumping on particular ones. But removing these things, I don't know if I feel okay about that. Only because of what happened with some real estate issues that we had, right? Like, who oversees those things? I don't know if removing that is a good thing.
I think it opens up the gate for a free for all and for a lot of room for lack of guidance and
there's no check and balance. There's less check and balance. If you remove those things, right, it seem a bit backward to me.
But again, that isn't our field.
That's we have a bit backward. And of course, if there's any economists in the live, feel free to jump in and engage.
Definitely. Yeah.
And then looking at the BPP. So the BPP, I feel like I talk a lot. The BPP's manifesto is very reformist. So they look at a lot of like specific things to change.
I was noticing that too. I got that from it as well.
Yeah, they look at a very like specific things. Like they talk about specific, like how you change the public accounts committee, how you look upon the sugar industry marketing committee. Some of these things I didn't even know like existed.
And my thing is, how accurate is it of them to make these claims and statements, granted that they are potentially incoming parties and they have never had to deal with these sectors? Where are they getting their information and statistics from? You know, how accurate is this?
I think they have had like involvement from other people. You know, this political game is a very stealthy one. So I think they've gotten their information from probably relatively sort of strong sources, but they're just this was a very wordy document, so it's a hard to read document, and I don't think very many people will read it. It's quite interesting this year that a lot of the political parties, all of them, and I haven't gotten the Belize People's Front manifesto because they don't seem to have published one. But it's funny that, you know, during this time, political parties seem to have increased on their documentation, right? Which is great, but also, like, who really will read that?
Besides us.
Like, except we, right? Like, who really will read those things?
The common young person, or just the average young person, will not take a Friday or Saturday night and say, "Matters, man, I want to read this manifesto, see what it happened."
And that's not even young people, right? Like, we now have, and it's very sad to say, Belizeans, we now have a very like strong reading culture. So on, like, if you don't like read, and especially if you don't like read, they are kind of wordy and very like technical knowledge documents. You just not do that. So that made me very like, this is interesting that you would get more wordy in a time and in a time in the world where like, people just like quick information, right? And it's a delicate balance between that quick self-gratification and actually getting the information you need. So I do hope that, you know, these things are not just written on these papers, but that they actually commit to it and commit to the language that they written, because I don't know how much they consult with people before they write these things, which is another thing, right?
Exactly.
That those way they probably think we need. But manifestos on a whole this year, and then switch the conversation to voting. Just a leave it. Please allow me. Leave it.
By all means.
Um, One of the things I think we have to think about as we move to election in a like 48 hours or so is that there's a pandemic, and a pandemic that is brutalizing us in Belize. Has been recent flooding which has destroyed probably the only assets that people have left, their house and their property. Thank God that we don't record no loss of life. Give
Yeah.
thanks for that. But the last thing I want to do, pan, one day when the sun just started to shine back and it just stopped rain, and I left that is take up my time to go to a polling station, and I really want people to take the time and make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
But
But
it's a bit harder for
realistically,
people. It's a
especially
bit
for those
harder.
who are still feeling the effect in Cayo and the Belize River Valley area, where flooding has just since, started to pick up back, because it
Hmm.
isn't over, you know?
Yeah. So they really have to give people what am I voting for? Is what politicians need to answer for people, because there were immense sacrifice for the, and especially if you live in a rural areas. Oh my goodness, it is so hard to get to your polling station because they're so far away from where you live because of just the way the landscape is set up.
But I will
Um,
say this, we all know that they're going for you. But when it's time to give you the basic necessities that you need in order to survive on a daily basis when election
can't
done,
find me. Can't find
nowhere
me.
to be found.
Can't find me. That's one of the things I said. You voice the you voice matters, and big up to you voice matters is one of the things I say is that if you can't contact me, not call them gate, because I don't want to talk to you then either. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's a very one sided thing when you feel like you want control the narrative at all times. This and that. That me they elect you, that me they hire you, this and that. Right? And I think the more and more people just become more conscious of their civic responsibilities, civic rights, and their power as a people, I think that culture will start to change where politicians will feel like, oh, me I contact you and me ready to talk to you.
Exactly. And the
I
minute
mean,
the minute we stop giving them leeway for that, they will tighten up and realize that,
mm-hmm.
man, we need to try change this toxic behavior of only wanting to deal with you when it's time to gain
Yeah, because
something to benefit.
that real man, I mean, I get inappropriate just now. That is a real abusive relationship. I mean, I don't
It
rate that, right? Um, but coming back to the manifesto before we lose ourselves,
Yeah.
no?
Oh, what I did want to mention, while we're coming back to the manifestos, and I do note that this is a reoccurring promise from the People's United Party.
What's
Good
that?
old land, good old land. So,
Land.
land, yeah. So the People's United Party have promised, gave us an ode that
Mm-hmm.
once they become the elected officials at the age of 18, each individual will be given a plot of land. So
I want more.
all right, I have questions. First of all, we have such a dense urban and rural, well, we are saying urban because when you talk about rural areas, these are the communities and the families who may more than likely own the land by family lineage, and then it just
Mm-hmm.
goes down. But when you look at the urban areas and the cities where rent is the generational lifestyle and owning a piece of land is so far-fetched a thought,
Yeah.
how is it that you will accommodate all of these people and ensure that it is done in a fair and justifiable manner without going down to a remote village in the Punta Gorda area and grabbing the land from the indigenous groups and giving to these people who are you're promising it to within your
Yeah.
constituents. So that's my main
But no,
thing.
yeah.
Where you going to land from, friend? How?
Land. Okay, so land our finite resource. And that's something we have to be able to have a certain level of security about it. Just like because without land, we basically can't do nothing. We can't grow food. We don't have collateral. Without land, we can't do much.
Mhm.
Um, both major political parties, and I think even the Belize Progressive Party, has pledged to make land something that is more attainable, make the
Yeah.
process at the land department less laborious. They have pledged to do these type of things. The PUP has said that, and that's something I want to highlight as a certified tree hugger, a lover of the environment, and someone with indigenous heritage who, and if you look at just the areas of Belize that is most preserved, you have to credit the indigenous peoples for just the stewardship of the environment. No, PUP made a very pointed statement, and again, as a writer, I love the language of it.
Yeah.
It said, protect land with high intrinsic value. Lands that provide watershed protection, important botanic and wildlife habitat, tremendous biodiversity, and cultural significance. That's what they pledge to do. Strategically access green climate change funds via partnerships with institutions like 5Cs, the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, to secure millions to address our social and environmental needs, reduce vulnerability to climate change and other risks.
Yeah.
Now, put that in the context of what are we there now with this flooding. It's very important that people understand that climate change, they are. There's no way to avoid it at this point. We're a small island developing state. That's what we're classified as. Where we not
Urban
contribute,
planning. Urban
we not
planning
come.
needs to become
Yes,
relevant
yes,
and respected.
yes. Especially in Belize City, where Belize City are mostly water. I don't think people realize that the
Mhm.
economic center of your country are mostly water. You can ask any urban planner about that. Big up
Which
to
is
Keisha
why the
Rodriguez.
capital was moved.
Yeah. So, but Belize City is still very much a political and economic center because of just how the constituencies are set. Constituencies, sorry,
Hmm.
are set up. So you have to be able to think about these things rationally, and even as our own like collective memory. When we think about Hurricane Hattie as a people, they're just like men. Like when the rain may happen when they have that October 31st hurricane. I don't remember if that the Hattie or if that the unnamed hurricane, but there's a everybody reference back the hurricane because it's
Hmm.
so much in our consciousness as a Belizean people. I think that's something that is shared by us. And we have to be able to connect those with the things that they happen now. This climate change thing real. 10 feet of water in a San Ignacio. Who would imagine 10 feet of water in a San Ignacio with
And
dory and
Trinidad
canoe?
is usually the go-to place to shelter from a hurricane or
Exactly.
any type of rainfall. So that
Exactly.
was shocking all on its own, and it's
Exactly.
unfathomable to say the least.
Yes. So we have to be able to think about not only giving people land, but yeah, give people land where flood every time it rain. Yeah, give people land where could maybe used better for food. Yeah, give people land um where it will lose its value because it becomes residential. Land,
Hmm.
they're not just about they're not just about give everybody land.
Yeah,
Important. Me want my land too, you know? Me want my land. But
but
like
make it make sense.
you have to make it make sense. You can't just say this show. You have to make it make sense. And that's what I other than the language of this land policy from the People's United Party, I love that it's thinking progressively about preserving land and making sure that indigenous peoples have access to their land, but also making sure that we get the full value out of the beautiful land that we have. This is something
Yeah.
that Caribbean people and like that islanders in the Caribbean envy because
Hmm.
they not have this amount of resources that we have, and we have to be able to start to maximize on that.
The minute they make it into a free for all without any form of regulation or
In
statutory
our
body,
in our
it will be very dismal.
in our in our in our
Yeah.
now shifting topics from land, we could cover health.
Okay.
So health, we know pandemic health health has been on our minds and hearts since the coronavirus has come into our life and overstayed her welcome.
Yeah, and has been going to
Um,
be.
I like that extra can get rid of, right? But yes, health. What the United Democratic Party has pledged to do in terms of health. Let me just get my document here. Um, pledged to increase NHI, build hospitals in other constituents, in other areas of Belize, not constituencies,
Which
such
is
as
very
San
needed
Pedro.
because apart from the KHMH, we have the Northern Regional.
Yeah, you
And
don't have very many public spaces.
right, so that is
So,
definitely a welcomed addition to their manifesto that I hope they
mm.
deliver on if elected.
And again, okay, so I have the specific thing here. So
Mm-hmm.
build new hospitals in San Pedro and Punta Gorda, 2 new polyclinics in Orange Walk, complete the new polyclinic in Belmopan, build 2 new polyclinics in Santa Elena and San Ignacio, expand NHI services to Orange Walk and Cayo, adding another 75,000 beneficiaries. Now, we can do a reality check on this point. But before I do
Uh-huh.
a reality check, I can go to what PUP say about health. Hold on. So we know what they say.
To compare it one
They
time.
want to increase the health budget from 3.5 to 5% of the GDP. They will have a health and wellness minister, wellness minister, and they want to roll out NHI to the entire country to cover the 400,000 Belizeans. They want to support the development of the Faculty of Medical Science at the UB, which I adore. That's a great idea. Modernize the national health record system. So you want make sure BHIS, the Belize Health Information System, the lead number will get when you go to clinic or hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to make sure these things, and they want to invest in telehealth, which is to do virtual meetings with the doctor, that kind of thing, right? Or consultations. No, make it do a health check part while we have to check for the NHI thing, right? No, especially if you grow up outside Belize City, like me and
Mm-hmm.
Ranisha, you
Yeah.
understand say how important NHI is, right? And then you also understand how much of an inconvenience NHI is. The first thing we popped down when Corona
NHI.
um when Corona came for her visit is NHI.
Mm-hmm.
The thing where people use for their asthma bay, for any health issues where mothers use for maternal health, the first thing we pop down at NHI. What that say about the priorities of the people in a leadership? How weak was your healthcare system that it had
To
to,
begin
like,
with. So
weeks
right.
into the tourism collapse?
That was the
Your
first
your,
thing that
your NHI system, in our health crisis, by the way, your NHI system start to reduce services and then start to ration out services. I remember I got sick like with the flu just after the rationing start. And
mm-hmm.
I get there, this was the beginning of the month, it's almost like the 10th or the 11th, not even mid month yet. And the services me done, like the ration out services me done. So I couldn't, like, I had to pay actual cost for it. These are the things where make I get vexed. Because in the middle of a health crisis, that a virus that attacks people's respiratory system, your NHI system, your social protection system that is supposed to catch these people who are most at risk, literally pop down. That was health system pop down. So imagine if Belize City in at the beginning was the epicenter of this thing.
that
What that may I do? What
that
that may
would
I do
have
to
been
vulnerable communities?
utter disastrous. Like, I mean that you
Exactly.
can't
What that may I
even
do?
think about it
And they
because
say,
I get frustrated.
they say that this virus no see no face, no not discriminate. But I I don't subscribe to that only because I understand vulnerability
Yeah.
and understand that diseases not affect rich communities the same that it affects poor communities, because poor communities work the more high risk jobs. They're the one whether they front desk, they're the one with the wait, they're the one whether they're your cashier, they're the one that interact with more people. When higher income people in the office and they could lock up all day. I mean, not the hate for nobody.
Yeah.
But you have to understand
the reality of it.
Right? So NHI, that's something where we seriously need to look on, but we need to be realistic. 400,000 Belizeans are a lot of people. There are a lot of people. And I don't know how realistic that is. The way how I would approach it is make it targeted. The same way how you do the boost program, where you have an assessment of who needs it and whatever. You have to be able to make it targeted and get to the people that needs it the most. To the people that are messaging me on WhatsApp, I cannot see it. I am using my phone right now. I see the notifications popping up, but I can't see it. So targeted approach to universal healthcare. Well, they can't. Universal healthcare is everyone gets healthcare, but a targeted approach to healthcare is what I think would work best for us right now. You know, realistic for we right now. Our debt to GDP, they're almost 100%. We borrow money for me upkeep NHI. We borrow money for me upkeep the boost program. We borrow money for me upkeep. We borrow, yeah, exactly. We made the borrow a lot, and I don't know how realistic 400,000 is. Maybe they was staggered out over the next 5 years, because the PUP policy is, the policy papers are for 10 years. The manifesto itself is for 5. But I just don't think right now. Maybe that wishful thinking. Maybe that they know what they do, but I just not see we had the money for it, bro. Like if I don't see it. If not the first thing pop down in a corona, then I don't see we they catch it so quickly, so soon. I don't see it happen.
And then the other thing is, I mean, I'm hoping that they already know how they are going to reallocate funds, because if the People's United Party gets elected into power, you will start off at a negative. So where will the funds come from to establish into these various industries?
Well, you have some entities where they lend money at lower interest rates. You have unfortunately, one of the things that also happened is that we defaulted on a payment to our foreign external debt to make sure that we could upkeep Belize's economy. You have countries that are moving toward making sure that the largest superpowers in the world understand the vulnerabilities of countries like ours. So there's a sort of international pity that with the count fund. And like,
it's funny that you said that, because I remember the press conference on Saturday, the last press conference for Prime Minister Dean Barrow, and he made a statement somewhere along the lines of, "We are awaiting international aid," or something to that effect. And the casual way in which he said it, I don't want to say that it seemed privileged, but okay. He said it so lackadaisically, like, we're receiving aid, expecting to get aid. I mean, as a third world Caribbean country who has just been ravaged by a tropical storm, aid is ultimately inevitable from whatever organizations we're a part of or whatever countries are our allies. But the tonality of it was so expectant and leaning towards, we are get aid. So I could just say,
I mean, and every time I have these type of conversation, Ranisha, I have to check myself, right? Because what I say to myself is that these people have not been operating any differently. So this is not brand new. It's not surprising that we will have to borrow money. It's not surprising that we saw laissez-faire about how it is that we're going to rebound as a country. That no, that I don't know how we will dribble the ball to make sure that we get the scores that we need for rebound, because people are suffering for a fact, and we will continue to suffer if we base the economy. And just I think we're moving toward closing, but if we continue as nation state, and if we continue to depend on these mono industries, um, like tourism, and that just being, the stalwart of our economy, what that
Mm-hmm.
does is just perpetuate poverty some more, because what
Yeah.
you're doing is just selling these services. Call center, listen, this industrial invitation economy that we're building with these call centers, and I want just tell the people never work at call centers, I have mad respect for the grind. This is not anything against because I have to do what I have to do.
Yeah.
But when governments, ministers, people who want to jump into politics, they talk about how, call center jobs, this and that. Well, our people deserve more than that. Our people deserve to have the skill set what they need to make sure that they could be entrepreneurs, could make sure that if they want to work for somebody, they could work for somebody, and that they self-actualize, the best version of themselves. You cannot
Agree.
really relegate an entire generation. You cannot relegate an entire generation of people to simply working in call centers where they have to sacrifice their identity, literally have to change your voice to make sure that the people that we talk to from foreign understand what you say. I know, sit well with my spirit. I don't like it.
And like with every other issue within our country, that isn't even selective to just Belize, because I know Jamaica has a huge issue with their BPO
Yeah.
sector just taking advantage of their economy.
It's you can't listen, if you got your companies that come into your country and I'm sure that they get incentives, it have to be more than just, and the turnover rate is incredible. The amount of the employment turnover rate is incredible. You cannot only say that the BPO sector was save Belizean people. We
Mm-hmm.
deserve our university to be top notch. Me don't know how in on God's green earth that our university of Belize is one of the best marine university in this region, when we have so much, when everybody come to Belize to study our university, not a day. How?
Yeah.
How? Make it make sense. There are
Is
the
the
kind of things.
University of Belize accredited?
No.
Okay. There we go.
So these are the things that we need to work on. The little things. Any advanced society have what tertiary level, or higher learning institution that is performing, because then people have more ideas, people make more business. When you make the ease of accessing at the business sector, we say you will have the online credit for young people get loans, then they were
Mm-hmm.
educated enough to access that. When they're educated enough to access that and they start their business, then you get more tax dollars. Everything have to be able to work together.
It's a
You
trickling
cannot
effect.
exactly. So when we look at these manifestos and we try our best to analyze them and talk about what has been and what shall be, we have to be able to just sit back and say what is,
Yeah.
because we can't live in this whimsical thing. Me not the thing where you have Belizeans, right? And this will be one of the last rants I have before we end this thing. You have you have Belizeans, right? We have a distinct issue to when you talk bad about Belize. Now me
Yeah.
love Belize. If you could see back there, the flag go there back there, big, big, big for me. While I need to take up my whole one. Listen to me, me love my country to no more. I will sacrifice my life for it. But I know what there and said that everything fine and down there, Belize so beautiful, and this and we nothing wrong with we, because a lot of things are wrong with us. And I know I exclude myself. A lot is wrong with us, with our mentality, with the way we do things, with the way we carry ourselves. There are a lot of things wrong with us, but we are, if we are able to reconcile, and everybody say what they have done that is wrong, what they have done to transgress against their own country, we are be the best. We can be and have amazing potential to be the best country in this region. Because we're not too big, we're not too small, we have so much resources. And I can tell you something about Belizean people, we are the brightest in the bunch. And we look good too. So so that not for a lack of not having all the ingredients we need. We just they struggle in this
We need the right actors, not only the right actors, but the right actions. Because I mean, who knows? Maybe the BPP or another competing party may be good for this country. They may have the heart of gold and willing to go the extra mile, but they need to be able to connect everything and make it make sense.
I don't believe in a utopia thing. There is no way we are finding 31 saints to fill up National Assembly Bill Pan, which I also think needs a renovation, but that's another story. There's no way I find 31 people. I can't depend on people. I don't want to have to trust a man. I want to have to trust the mechanisms to make sure that the man not do wrong. Because you could have somebody there so where, you know, you love them, they're charismatic, they have authority, they're intelligent, and then for their price what they set for themselves in a leadership low, and then they just go do something crazy and the entire integrity mash up. And then my country mash up as a result of that. We cannot continue to depend on men and women because we for women in parliament. Homemakers and policymakers, yes, let the Lord say amen. But you have to be able to have the mechanisms in place to make sure that people not falter, not set people up for fail. You can't expect divinity from humanity.
And I mean, I think that the main idea you get after you read their manifestos that you might have people who can do the job, but the system needs an overhaul. And before that happens, you will have a new generation of the UDP and the PUP coming into the same mess that was made by the previous generation. And it will continue to be a monotonous cycle for our children to come and their children to come.
Yeah. After 39 years, we deserve more. And we need to put in the work for more. We need to put in the work for more.
On that note, I guess all we can do is pray and hope because election day is here and we will see. We'll see what becomes of all the fanfare and the
dubs
and the dance competitions and
Jerusalem.
All that good stuff.
I mean, and some of the dubs really hype. I hope the artists realize.
I'm not even gonna lie. I like a couple of them. The TR Shine one was have a buzz. But still, the point is, it shouldn't be done, but it will forever be done.
You know, and as I close, I just want to say, you know, of course, thank you for inviting me on your platform. I thank you for trusting my intellect to be on your platform. Because we're a friend, but you know, you got some friends here don't really trust the intellect. So thank you for respecting that. And I also want to remind people like you. I know the Kawarra constituency obviously because I'm at home. Barbados actually has a by-election on the same day, so I had to get all of my election hype here. So but I'll also be on the Channel 7 Creme Television, Creme Radio collaboration on election day from 11 to 12. I'll be sitting in with Kalila Reynolds and Ambassador Gutierrez for an hour and just having conversations just like this about what we expect the election turnout to be. So if you follow me on a link with our campaign for those media houses named Danau. So just link with it and we chat again. So we have some election conversation on November 11th.
And you can always toggle between the Now page and the Love FM Love Television page because I will be broadcasting from the Queen Square Division all day for the upcoming general election. And I mean, with all that being said, wrapped up with a nice little bow, that's just the gentle perspective alongside Dominique Noralez on this
Yay.
episode. Thank you
Yes.
guys for joining, and I will actually be posting the video on my Instagram and on my YouTube channel. So look out for
Yes.
that, and please enjoy the rest of your night. Be safe,
Yes.
have a safe election, wash your hands,
Wear your
practice your social
mask.
distancing, wear your masks. Good night, everyone. Bye,
Good
Dom.
night. Bye.